I hope that today provides you with helpful information, some insights, discoveries, self discoveries, and at the end of it all, a takeaway to actually put a plan in place for yourself to provide some good and healthy self care. We will be utilizing the chat feature on the side, and I will invite you at certain times to actually provide some input, maybe a couple of words or answers to some questions I'll pose throughout. I will ask, I can't see the chat myself right now, so if there's something we can do from the technical end so I can see what's going on in the chat, that would be wonderful. So, just to dive right in, the term self care. What is self care? There's a lot of different words up on the screen that maybe come to mind when you say the term self care. Um, Basically, self care it's engaging in activities and practices, choices and routines that nurture, benefit, and sustain our well being. Some of these features are up on the screen here. I love that the word deliberate because that tells me that it's on purpose, that we're paying attention, that it's controlled by us, and there are many different aspects of that. So, a basic definition of self care is that self care is the practice of taking time for yourself. Simply that. It's taking time for yourself. It's the practice of taking care of your own needs, wants, and desires. Self care is the practice of intentional and purposeful engagement in behaviors that protect or rebuild inner peace and well being. So, what are some words maybe that come to mind for you? Maybe you saw on the last screen that you would focus on when you think of the word self care. What are some of those? If you want to use the chat feature, that would be lovely.
So you've got say no sometimes and healthy eating.
Nice. I like that to say no sometimes. That's really important. That's putting ourselves in a position that we are paying attention to our needs. And for a lot of people, that can be really, really difficult to do.
Staying
Any other thoughts on that?
strong, setting boundaries.
Yes, lovely. Thank you. So, how about some myths, some common myths about self-care? Often, when people hear the term self care, they think that it's a selfish indulgence. No, it is not. It's never a self indulgence to recognize that time invested in your overall wellness, it's going to mean that we're more equipped to provide care in other ways. It's an excuse to pamper yourself. Often people believe that self-care, I'm practicing some self-care today and I don't know, getting my nails done, that it's an indulgence somehow or something out of the ordinary. Again, no. Many or most self-care activities will be connected to actually lowering your stress levels. When we step into self care, it's typically at a time where we recognize things are building up, that we're getting to the point where we're not sure we're going to be able to manage things well or as well as we normally would. So, taking time away from the stress inducing activities will also help contribute to overall well being. So, recognizing when those things are building and actually setting time aside. So, it's not necessarily a pampering exercise, it's going to be connected to lowering stress levels. If that does mean getting your nails done and you find that to be comforting somehow, wonderful. Self-care is only optional. Hmm. So, do you believe that caring for your own health is only optional? No, it is a necessity. It can be as simple as a 5-minute break, right, at intervals throughout the day in order to reset. A really easy way to do that is to take a step back, is when you've completed an activity and you're starting to feel that things are building up. It's taking a 5-minute breathing break, for example, just to step back, allow yourself literally some breathing room, and take that mental break and just let things ease out of you for a little reset to go back in, to re engage in activities that you are responsible for. Self-care is expensive. No, it's not. Self-care is simply recognizing what you need. It's to address your needs directly. And it's not connected to a dollar amount necessarily. Time in nature can be self-care. Taking a breathing break can be self-care. Putting things in an organized manner, if that works for you, can be self-care. None of those things cost or have a dollar value. And self-care is only for women. Where does that come from? Again, self-care, often when people think about it, their heads go to little indulgences, right? And often that's affiliated with things that women do. Self-care is for everybody, and it can fit absolutely everybody. It's not just pointed in one direction, for only one type of person. So, any other myths? Again, I'm going to invite you to use the chat feature. Any other things, myths about self-care that come to mind that maybe you've heard of in the past or presently is something that you're thinking is a myth?
Sign of weakness
Yes.
should happen after everyone else's needs have been looked after.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
It is selfish.
Yeah. Mm. Well, we know that it's not, or we're learning today that it's not. Okay, let's move forward. So, what does this look like in your everyday life? What can self care actually look like? So, the model that we're using today is based on 6 key areas of identification. Each of these areas requires your attention. Lacking in one or more specific area can have an impact on the other areas. And I'm going to show you how that's connected, and I'm sure you'll discover ways that it's connected as well. And of these 6 key areas, each area has like sub areas or little veins that feed into it, different aspects of it. Okay, so let's talk about them. They're simply called the domains of self care. There are a few different models of this, but I have been using this model for quite some time and believe that it covers your overall well-being in a holistic way and touches on the areas that actually factor in. So the first domain is the physical domain, and this includes your overall physical health. It includes medical conditions that maybe you're managing. It includes nutrition, it includes exercise, it includes sleep. Everything that contributes to your physical self is part of that domain. Okay. Your emotional domain, and this is how you experience, process, and express your feelings. And again, there are going to be different aspects of that that play into it, or impacted or influenced in that way. Psychological is your self-awareness. It's being in tune with your intellectual needs It's feeding our brain, it's our cognition, it's our way of thinking and processing. The personal domain is made up of social, relational, and financial aspects. So, this is connectedness to family, to friends, social involvement, your goals and aspirations, and finances factor into this as well. Professional domain has to do with involvement in work, in school, in volunteering, and in your home life. So, the roles that you actually play or have in your life. And the spiritual domain is the sense of being part of something bigger than yourself. It attributes to your personal ethics, attributes to maybe a sense of purpose, but it's not religious. It's not religious. It's spiritual. Okay. So we are going to actually dive right into these now. Okay. So physical. What contributes to our physical domain? As I mentioned, so our body, this has everything to do with our body. It's our age, it's health conditions, it's disease and disease management, it's nutrition, it's exercise, it's sleep, it's medication, it's lifestyle, it's substance use. It's many, many, many things. So we ask ourselves the question, do we follow a healthy routine? Do we have access to what we need to follow a healthy routine? Are our basic needs cared for? And this is looking at things in sort of that hierarchy of self. So, at the very base of things, that foundation, are our housing needs, access to food, transportation. So, some of the social determinants of well being are in there. Uh, and what are our options through the Niagara North Family Health Team? You're in one right now, and thank you. Uh, Parts of physical. So let's talk about this again with the chat feature, and I appreciate your participation. So when you think of physical and physical well-being, what comes to mind for you? Or maybe what are some challenges in establishing your well-being in this way? So think about some of these. I point at my screen. Think about some of these aspects of body that contribute and maybe some challenges or some other ideas that you have that contribute to that physical well-being.
Going for a walk, just being out in nature.
Hmm. I think that one fits into a couple of categories when you think of being out in nature, and I do use that in this webinar, the importance of that. Hmm.
Keeping a healthy weight, grounding with toes in the grass.
Ah, yeah, connecting. I like that. Mm,
A challenge would be a physical disability.
right, right. So when you look at health conditions, absolutely, what challenges us? So maybe it's looking at things and doing them a different way that works for you and maybe not necessarily for someone else. And really at the core of this, that is an important element of this, is that it is about yourself and not in comparison to anyone else. It's looking at you as a unique individual, what you bring to the table and what your specific needs are. So yes, any of those are going to come into play. If you live with chronic pain, how you get beyond that and addressing your well-being in all of these ways. So putting that into the focus as well. Okay. Emotional. Here's a great question. Are you comfortable experiencing emotions? Sometimes we are, sometimes we aren't. For many people, What I hear as a therapist is that it depends on what the issue is and how comfortable they are in that, right? In expressing and experiencing emotions, things that have factored into the open expression or acceptance of expressing your emotions, right? Do you freely express yourself or do you hold it in? This ties in very specifically. So part of this is emotional conditioning what is looked at as being acceptable or okay if we saw somebody, in a store, and they were laughing, we probably wouldn't think anything of that. We may smile, we may enjoy that, bearing witness to that. But if we saw the same person sobbing, emotional tears, what would our comfort level be with that? Hmm, hard to know. Have you engaged in forgiveness and letting go? This is a big part of emotional work, is not hanging on to things that no longer serve you, that no longer hold space in your life, or you have space for it in your life anymore. It's recognizing what that feels like and what that exercise of letting go means to you in a good way, in a positive way. It's holding yourself in in your emotions to experience them, and that can be a very new experience for many, many people. Do you recognize and experience a range of emotions? So our lovely little emojis here, are expressing a range of emotions, which we are all born with and born into, from all over the place in the emotional aspects, as you can see there. Comments and thoughts on the emotional aspect. I'm going to say that this one tends to be very challenging for many people, is stepping into emotional work. What are your thoughts on that? And how is your emotional well-being? How do you know if your emotional well-being needs attention?
Being taken for granted.
Hmm. Okay. That's a hard feeling.
I have forgiven some people and feel relieved after.
Hmm.
My biggest challenge is not freely expressing my emotions when I feel they might upset someone.
We call that eggshell walking sometimes, right? It's sparing what we think might be somebody else's feelings based on our own.
Having a hard time forgiving.
Forgiveness is a very interesting topic. And most people, I'm not going to say most, often, it's a better word, often people misunderstand what the concept of forgiveness is really about. Forgiveness is not about saying, yeah, it's totally okay, all that stuff you did and how you treat me and the actions you choose. It's not about that at all. It's not about giving them, an excuse for that. It's not. Or self, towards yourself. It's recognizing that in holding on to historical issues in that way and not applying forgiveness means that you're holding yourself down to that, and you're allowing it to have almost an emotional stranglehold on you in a way. It's holding you down, it's keeping you down. Forgiveness is letting go of that, not making an excuse for those behaviors, but letting go of the impact it has on you and not having it hold you down. It's an interesting concept to think through, and I would encourage you all to really explore what forgiveness would mean then in that different way. Hmm. Thanks for sharing that thought that it's hard. Okay, I appreciate that.
But a couple more: being used, not receiving gratitude. Often one emotion is hiding another, and it's hard to forgive myself.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Definitely hard. It's difficult when we're working in the emotional realm, and trying to recognize and nurture that. Sometimes the first steps into emotional work are simply allowing yourself to feel the actual emotion, to sit in that, either in its comfort, its joy, its discomfort, its sadness, its pain, is allowing yourself to process that feeling, knowing that you are going to come out on the other side with a different understanding of what it means to you. So I would encourage you all to at least consider that. More often, we are more likely to just, yeah, run away from that. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to be in that. And we press it down, press it down, press it down until there's a really big package of stuff down there, right? So I would encourage you to explore some of those feelings. Psychological. So how do you feed your brain? Hmm. Okay. How do you get in there and feed into the way you think, um, things that are of interest to you, how you process information, um, asking for help when you need it. So when you're trying to work through an issue, when you're thinking, just think about this as all of your brain work in there, okay? And when you're thinking through something and recognize, ah, I'm at an impasse. I'm not getting anywhere, or I don't know what to do in this situation. Do you ask for help? Do you reach out? Do you recognize when you need to do that? And are you brave enough to do that? That's a big step, and that this is a great place to talk about how one feeds into the other, right? How one domain actually has an impact on another. Quite often, our psychological domain feeds into the emotional, and there's a lot of weaving within that and connection within that. So using the example of, do you ask for help when you need it? All sorts of emotional stuff can come into play here, right? All sorts of that comes into play. If I ask for help, I'm going to look like I'm not competent. I'm going to feel bad about myself, like I can't do things, I'm a failure. All of those negative messages can come into play. So that, I mean, the psychological stuff, it is that self-talk, it is that internal voice, but it's also impacted and influenced by the emotional domain. Psychological is creative outlets that you may be engaging in, things that work with how you are naturally in that sense. So some people may be artistic. Maybe they can create art, the art behind me. So a wonderfully gifted person created that art. It wasn't me. But maybe you engage in something that feeds your brain in that way. Okay. So think about how that works for you, and also the connection between the psychological and the emotional, and how that really ties around together. Okay. Personal. Okay, so social, relationships, and there's a financial aspect in here too. So how connected do you feel to others around you? And this includes friends and family. So it's your personal network, it's your social network. And how are those connections? Do they feel healthy to you? Are they enough? Do they meet your needs? Do they feel just right? And we're different when it comes to those aspects, depending on who you are, right? So, do you participate socially in some way? That is going to be different for everyone based on whether or not you like a lot of social activity or being around others, or maybe if you prefer things on a quieter sense. Okay. So, your participation socially is going to meet whatever those needs are for you. And again, they're different for everyone. Some people flourish being out and amongst others and in exciting activities and doing lots of things. Other people prefer a quieter way of engaging and connecting in different ways. We are fortunate that we have this whole realm that we're in right now, using a virtual way of connecting. Certainly learning the importance of that when maybe you're far away from people close to you and how that works for you. So what are some activities? What are some activities or social? How does that how does that unravel for you guys out there? What are things that help meet your needs? Again, using the chat feature.
Volunteering for activities that I enjoy.
Nice.
I book a monthly call with my best friend, so we always have a date to connect.
That's really good.
Spending time with friends and family members. I feel good and share loving feelings and have some laughs.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Some of the financial aspect of this, is that ensuring that you have adequate finances, right, to access, resources, to support yourself and family. So ensuring that you're stable within whatever budget that's in, to provide for yourself. And if you're not, if you're challenged in some ways in the financial way, knowing what resources are out there to assist you, to support you, that are available to you. Okay. Um, Social connectedness, again, is different for everybody in what it looks like and how it is, how often, and in what, like how it's actually done. So again, it doesn't have to look a certain way. It just has to meet your needs. Okay. Professional. So this is talking about it. It focuses a lot on like work, but I want you to recognize that professional um, can have to do with just balancing commitments. It can be volunteer. You can be a professional at home. You can be a professional outside of the home, whatever that is to you. So, the importance of setting boundaries for time and availability. So, to these types of commitments, knowing that you're not going over and above what's reasonable for you and feeling that it's drawing energy out of you instead of adding to something. So, recognizing that. Do you leave work at work? When you finish your obligation, are you able to let it be and return to you and other commitments and priorities? Okay. How do you balance your time with your commitments? Are you able to do that? How do you work as part of a team and independently and within realistic expectations? And do you utilize vacation and other eligible time off? Okay. So time off that you're allotted, are you actually taking it for yourself? Okay. Um, Going back to the point before that, how do you work as part of a team and independently? So again, different people are going to feel differently about that on how it is. If you are within a team environment, feeling that you have a place and you belong and you feel appreciated, that you feel that you are welcome, so it's looking at some of the other aspects of that. Okay. Setting boundaries is an issue that kind of ties in to a lot of different areas in our lives. Certainly for time and availability, people will often feel like they have to do more and be more available to be noticed, to be regarded, but not at your own expense. That can filter into your physical well-being, right? It can impact your emotional well-being. Definitely. So again, looking at how these can actually filter or factor into other areas or domains of your own self-care. Okay. Spiritual. And again, I need to say that spiritual is not necessarily religious. For many people, it is their sense of religion or belongingness to a specific faith. Okay, but that's not what we're addressing here. It's part and parcel of it. So, what nurtures your sense of belongingness? And this is on that larger aspect that it's not just me alone out here. I'm part of something bigger somehow. Okay. How does that feed into your understanding? How do you live your personal ethics? That's a spiritual aspect as well. Where do you draw inspiration from? And what feeds your soul? So let's get some comments in here in the chat again. I would like to hear some of these aspects. What nurtures your sense of belongingness? What factors into that? How do you live and demonstrate your personal ethics? What does that mean to you? What inspires you? What feeds your soul? These are things that just make you feel good about who you are and the way you live your life. So personal ethics, as I'm waiting for responses in chat, we may not have any responses. Personal ethics are your way is your way of understanding right and wrong for yourself, and living life in a way that demonstrates what's important to you, and how that comes to life. I see we have some chat.
Being near natural surroundings like lakes, rivers, and trees feeds my soul, besides belonging to my church. For me, it's golfing when I can, which relates back to being out in nature.
Absolutely lovely.
Nature is a great inspiration throughout the year.
It is. So, um, so this is called the self-care wheel, and this has all of the domains in it. So the domains of self-care that we were just talking about, and it actually gives some examples in there of how to address those different areas, different aspects or things you can do. So I'm going to work around it, starting at the top with professional. So, as I had mentioned, setting boundaries, using vacation time, taking mental health holidays, take your full lunch break. Who does that? Learn to say no and leaving work at work. Those are some things that make up taking good care, self-care in that area. In the personal area, reading a book maybe, reflecting on who you are and what makes you special. Plan and setting goals, making time for friends, maybe learning a new skill or hobby, and spending time with your family or people important to you. Spiritual. Yoga for many people is a spiritual practice, a connect for them. Volunteering for a cause can feel spiritual. So I had forgiveness in a different area, but it can feed into that area. Connecting with a spiritual community, whatever that means to you, spending time in nature, and maybe some singing or dancing. Uh, I sing every day on the way to work in my car like a champion. So I think it's healthy, it feels good, feeds the soul, right? Feels good. Emotional, laughter, laughing. Oh my gosh, that can be so healing. Practicing self-love. If you're a pet person, cuddling with your pet, crying, tears, allowing for tears. that expression. Maybe explore a hobby, filters into that, and community engagement can as well. Psychological, joining a support group. So accessing things that are available to you in that way. Taking time for self-reflection, right? Your thoughts about yourself, listening to that inner voice, that inner dialogue. Is it healthy? Meditation, being creative, therapy or counseling, and maybe keeping a journal. Many people that I work with do enjoy keeping a journal. It's private. It is their free expression where they feel that they can really connect with what's going on with them. And physical. So we didn't mention this, but getting a massage, if you have access to that or someone who will do that, how lovely working through those things. Exercise, and exercise, depending on your ability, is certainly good for you. Regular sleep. We have lots of information on sleep hygiene and how to certainly address when there are sleep issues. Enjoying physical intimacy, like hugs and holding hands with somebody you care about, eating healthy, and making sure you're getting regular medical care. So your access again to programs and services that are available through the Niagara North Family Health Team. So how to create a self-care plan, and this is where you have your follow through, okay? It's acknowledging that you are responsible for your own self-care. Nobody is going to be able to take a look inside and figure out the unique ways that you need as a person. It is up to you. It is not selfish and it doesn't have to cost money. It can fit into your everyday schedule depending on the elements or areas that you're defining and how you're choosing to approach those. It can be as simple or as complex as you define and determine. Um, Initially, assess yourself. Where do I feel I am most needy? What domain requires the most attention in me right now? What is most important to me? And also taking the approach of being realistic as to what you can commit to. We can come up with great, wonderful, grand ideas that we're not going to follow through on. So starting with something that you know you're going to be able to handle and you can commit to, and then working up from there and working out from there. So engaging in your plan. When you've identified which domain you're going to start with, set a time each day to make changes, right? So let's say I decided that I really wanted to work in the psychological realm. Okay, I felt that it was an area that I wanted to focus on. And the sub area was engaging in a creative outlet. So I chose in developing my plan that I would set aside 30 minutes a day, okay, to work on creative journaling in a way, in writing expressive poetry, in making illustrations or coloring, making it my own, but looking to create in that way. And in doing that, feeling I need some inspiration here. So, where can I find inspiration that may help me with that? So, a local library, an art hub, or online sources, things that are going to inspire me and give me ideas. Okay. How daunting is this sounding at this point? So, as we get to this point in the webinar, actually bringing something to life, how is that feeling for you guys?
Very challenging. I find it hard to take the time for myself. How do
Yeah.
you let go of anger?
Mhm. Mhm.
And we've got it's doable.
So yeah, it can definitely feel like it's going to be a challenge, okay? So so maybe, in just breaking it down to smaller pieces will be helpful. So in addition to those larger, more defined plan items, right? Maybe just making time daily to connect with yourself. And maybe that is your starting point into this, right? Is screening yourself, is doing a self check-in, to spend 5 or 10 minutes on yourself each and every day to check in and kind of say, ask yourself, am I okay in these domains today? What is speaking to me that needs my attention? And how can I address that maybe in a small way today? Self care varies day to day. And some days you can recognize that one domain is calling for your attention, right? An easy one to say is you didn't get a good night's sleep. You have a chronic condition that you're living with, a variation in pain daily. And today was a day where just all of those things were in overdrive. Didn't sleep well, pain tolerance kind of at its limits. You're feeling exceptionally tired by the end of your day, so your physical would be calling out to you and saying, this is the domain that requires my attention today. What can I do to nurture this? Okay. So just thinking about it in that way. But I also want you to think about in creating a plan for yourself to look at these domains and things that you're willing to do to nurture yourself, to apply good self-care. So maybe creating a tracker. Some people are like things organized, right? And doing that. So I just use the example. So create a tracker and you've got your domains listed. And the way that it is you select a domain, and then under that domain, you state what the issue is. So I'm tired. I didn't get enough sleep. And then below that, identify barriers, challenges that may be contributing. So the hours of sleep needed each night to feel rested, those aren't being met. So maybe you went to bed way too late and had to get up early. Okay, something as simple as that. And then listing outcomes, right? Solutions, goals for change and improvement, and ideas to get you there. So creating a tracker that provides the information with those things identified and steps included. Okay. So maybe it is about what we call sleep hygiene. Maybe it's about, playing with your bedtime routine. Um, Another one under the personal domain, feeling like family is not priority. Feeling like you're just pulled, right? Family is not priority right now. We're experiencing that. Everyone has commitments and crazy schedules. I'm feeling detached and I want to feel attached. So together with family, agreeing upon maybe a weekly time for a meal together or an activity, whatever that is. But coming to, ideas on how you can address that or nurture that. Any thoughts on using a tracker?
Someone said this would be very useful for me.
Okay. That's great. All right. So thoughts on this. I want this to be an opportunity to share your thoughts on engaging in self-care, your thoughts on how the domains work, whether or not this is something that you feel you are ready to engage in. So maybe just open up with the chat, some thoughts about the content, and maybe any questions you might have as we get closer to wrapping up the webinar today.
I need to take baby steps. If I set too many targets, it will actually be more stressful trying to meet them all.
I agree. This this can be inspiring in many ways that make us want to go, okay, I'm going to step into this. I'm going to set goals in all these areas. So, yes, maybe for someone like you that recognizes that about themselves, it's actually just doing a check in. Where am I at today? How do I feel in my domains? And what do I need today in order to nurture myself in the way that's speaking to me the strongest? And sometimes that's just taking a step away, maybe some time in reflection, maybe some time in meditation, if you will, of your own way. So a relaxation exercise. Maybe it's about that. But that check-in daily might be a great way to start.
I like the idea of setting aside time for daily check-in. It's a good way to start.
Me too. Thank you. And I hope you engage in that. Okay. Any other thoughts? Anyone thinking there's something, there's an area that they're willing to start with? Okay. I'm gonna move it to the thank you, thank you, thank you. Is there one, Alicia?
I will start with the daily check-in. Forgiveness for me is a good starting place.
And again, I would encourage you, if people are working on that, to maybe get some support in that work. Okay. I encourage you to take a look at the programs and services, the webinars, the things that are available through your Niagara North Family Health Team. If you are part of the health team and what we have available to you, because these areas are definitely addressed and nurtured through the services that we do provide. I hope that everyone got a little something out of today. Yeah, and thank you for attending.